Hey, what's up guys? Rich Graham here, Safariland Cadre, founder of Full Spectrum Warrior. Welcome back to another Cadre pro tip. So today we're going to talk about cover, dead space, angles, working around the vehicle. Cover is what's going to protect you from the threat. Concealment, when we talk about that, it's hiding us. It's not actually protecting us. Our protection is being hidden. So let's just say we're in a general shootout and let's say we're facing someone with a low caliber rifle or a pistol or something like that, and we're going to look at how do we use the vehicle as cover. Looking at the vehicle, we're going to look for the hard points. So the main one that we have is the engine block and all the components up here with our front drivetrain, with the wheels, the axles, the suspension, engine, transmission, all of that's happening up here, the engine block region. This is going to provide us the most cover. Coming down, you have your A pillar, you have a B pillar, you have your C pillar, and guess what that one is? Yep, D pillar. We have our axle here with the rear wheels, and on these newer vehicles, you can't always count on the bumpers because a lot of the new bumpers are plastic. One of the things to keep in mind when we're talking about cover is the cover is going to be used as a pivot point. It's going to be the axis between you and the bad guy. So if my bad guy is the Dodge Ram back there, I'm behind the engine block in this position. A lot of times we get in this mindset with newer shooters who haven't had as much experience working around the vehicles is that you have to be right here on the side of it, or I have to be right there at the front and putting in like a 90-degree angle, which isn't necessarily the case. It's just my cover is going to be between me and the bad guy. If my bad guy was over here in this Cadillac that's behind the truck, then basically I would reposition myself and imagine where that engine block is between me and the Cadillac. I could do the same thing with the A pillar, with the B pillar, and then how people get caught up on that position of where they think they're gonna use the engine block instead of pivoting and using that as the axis for that movement. The same concept happens with our A, B, C, D pillars. Is if I'm looking at the Cadillac in the background, I could use this B pillar here, or I can use the far B pillar. I could be in a position, if my threat was at the Dodge over here, I could use a position like this to where I'm using my C pillar on this side, but the A pillar on the other side, and if the windows are already blown out, I'm kind of fishing them through or stacking these pillars so that they're providing that wall of cover between us. So now let's go into dead space. So what we want to look at here, and I'm sure you guys have seen movies with like the police officers and everyone, and there's the shootout and everyone's behind the vehicle and everyone's laying across the hood doing the Miami Vice thing where they're like this, laying across the hood shooting. So one of the things when we're using an object as cover, right, if we have dead space and putting the deflection in our favor, we don't want to be on top of the cover. We want some space from it if possible. If the tactics and if the situation allows us to take a little bit of space back, I want to show you why that works in our favor versus crowding the cover. So there's a few things. One is we lose field of view. Two is we don't give enough time for deflection, so what should have been a miss stays a miss versus what should have been a miss winds up hitting us because we're so close to the cover, the skip actually hits us. So in this case, what we're gonna do is I have bad guys standing behind the hood of the car. Now, this would be amplified, right? Because if you're actually leaning over the hood, then it's like a guarantee. The skip is basically a guaranteed hit. But what I've done is I've drawn a thin line on this. So you can see this line, and this is what I'm gonna see. So here he is crowding the cover right behind the car. And if you can see that little dot of the muzzle, that's what I'm gonna be aiming at. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna duck down so that I can just see the tip of the barrel. But because my barrel is just below my iron sights, what's gonna happen is when I take this shot, the hood's gonna get in the way and I'm gonna graze the hood and it's gonna skip. So regardless of where you see the round hit the paper, understand this dot right here on that barrel, that's what I'm aiming at. So let's see what happens. All right guys, so let's give this a shot. I'm gonna shoot 115 grain full metal jacket, 9mm. So in this, we're at 6 yards from the hood, 7 yards from the target. So again, I'm gonna get in position to where I can just see the tip of that barrel. Right, I'm gonna aim. Okay, that one might have dug in. I'm gonna aim a little bit higher. There we go. Okay, So now let's go see where those rounds went. We took 3 shots. What we have is this one dug in and skipped up. We have, that's shrapnel. Here's an impact and here's an impact. Okay? So those are our 3 things. Fragmentation, impact off this skip is up in his face. I'm aiming there. We have one that actually I think went in and dug into the hood and actually ripped back out the hood and went here. So one ripped through the hood, went where it was close to where it was supposed to. The other 2 skipped up and put fragmentation, or the rounds coming up and hitting up by his head. So for all 3 of these shots, if this dude is on that hood crowding the cover, 2 of the 3 hit, 1 comes up and misses off the side of his head, but if he was laying on the hood, that still might have hit. So now what we're gonna do is, again, what we're talking about of putting a little bit of dead space between you and the item for cover. I like to say 2 steps back if it provides the opportunity for you. If you're getting flanked or whatever, you can get back into it. You're not so far away that you're hanging out way far away from it, but it's enough to give us a little bit more space for deflection to work in our favor. So I'm gonna take this target back 2 steps and we're gonna repeat, and I'm gonna skip these again. Now that the target's back a little bit, I can see all the way down to his waistband. So to keep it consistent for the experiment, I'm gonna squat down so that's the same level over the hood. So that way we have a consistent reference point. All right, so from here, we have that line. Okay, let's see where those went. So we can see our skips, 1, 2, 3. This one dug in. Those are the last ones, 1, 2, 3, 4. So on this, 1 still made it. Here's 1 here, 1 here, and 1 here. 3 of the 4 went 6 inches above his head, but that's with me aiming here. So look how far the deflection is, 1, 2, 3, that's a pretty tight group. So by me stepping back just 2 paces, that size of deflection is literally just over 2 feet. Bullets do crazy things and sometimes it won't work. This one hit right in the upper chest, basically 6 inches above where I was aiming. So by taking those 2 steps back, 75% of the rounds stayed a miss, right? Versus having them come in and hit where they were. If the first position where the guy's leaning over the hood, this one missed just off to the side, but if this dude's leaning in like this over the hood, that probably still would have hit because there was no space for deflection. Putting him back, giving him this 2 feet from the impact area, allowed it to jump up and just come off course just a little bit to miss his head. With that understanding, let's look back about using this vehicle again as cover. If I look here, in addition to putting deflection on our side, it's good to be able to see what are my options, what do I have to work with, what's around me. If I want to get away from this vehicle, where am I going to go for cover? If I have someone else and they're moving, can I see anything? When I do this and I'm in position and I'm like here and then I go down, from this position being up against the truck, I lost my deflection. When I go to come back up, I have to drop back in. If I'm 1 step back, then as I go up and down, I don't have to move my arms. I can just stay in my shooting position. If I come over, I have to come here and then I have to come back. But in this position, being tight to the vehicle, I can see to the first cone that's at the middle of that pickup truck. And if I look this way, I can see to this first cone that's on the berm out there behind the Cadillac. So my field of view is very, very narrow. I can't see much in front of me. From this position, if I take 1 step back, now I can see all the way to this cone here. So I can see this entire Cadillac. Before I couldn't even see this car. Now I can see all the way to that cone, and on this side, I can see past the front of this Ford Explorer. So now, if I need to move, I can see what's happening here. I can see what's happening here. I have some options. If I take 1 more step back to where we were talking about where I wanted to be, now I can see all the way to that white bucket. I can see this whole section. And over here, I can see all the way up to the cone. So now I have this huge field of view. And if this is my bad guy right here out in front of me, this engine block is still working as cover. I can simply come here, be in a squat, aim, come up, come back down, and this is fine. If he shoots back, that still works as cover, whether I'm right up on top of it or if I'm 2 steps back. But in reality, this actually provides me a little bit better cover based on this current position, because if he does shoot in and miss, because of the spacing, that miss hopefully will stay a miss. Much higher probability that it will than if I'm up on top. So once I crowd this, I find myself in a position to where I lose that field of view. I'm not as good of a shooting position to get in and out quickly. And if a round wiggles its way through the truck, it can still potentially hit me because I'm so close. So this same concept applies if I'm using these pillars. So in this case, I can use these. And if this was the case, I could come off, and I got 2 of them making a wall right now. I can come out, right? I'm right here, come back in. If I were to move, if I was in this position, right, coming off, okay, and I can use this stuff basically work in my favor. I don't have to be right up on top of it. So hopefully that makes sense. You guys can start to visualize this a little bit about how we can take that cover and put it in the middle of that access, give ourselves a little bit of working room and get off that vehicle, right? We don't have to be so caught up to get in there. I know it makes us feel safe, but you see the demonstration what we did, and you can ask yourself, is it actually safer for me to be up against it once I know where my threat actually is? Again, my name is Rich Graham, Safariland Cadre, founder of Full Spectrum Warrior. Thanks for tuning in for another Cadre pro tip. Hopefully that helps. Leave a comment below. Let us know if you have any questions or any comments you want to leave, and we'll see you on the next video.